Chair. Over the past 15 months, we've seen inflation grow higher than at any time in the last 40 years. Perhaps the most painful driver of inflation has been the skyrocketing cost of gasoline at the pump. When Joe Biden took the oath of office, the average retail price of gasoline was $2.38 a gallon. Today, it is $4.23 a gallon. In some parts of the country, the price has crossed $6.90 a gallon. This was not an accident. It was not an unintended side effect, nor was it principally the result of the war in Ukraine. This was the result of the Green New Deal Zealots in the Biden administration. They told the American people they would do this, and they kept their promise. And now, the Democrats have discovered they have a problem. That's why we're having this hearing. It's not to discuss how President Biden launched a war on American energy and would rather buy gas from the Maduro regime or from Vladimir Putin than from Americans making money here in America. Rather, it's that people don't like paying $4 and $5 and $6 and $7 a gallon to fill up their tank. This is a political problem. And for them, political problems require a political solution. Just like with inflation for this administration, where they've had 5 separate explanations in 15 months. At first, it didn't exist. The White House told us there is no inflation. Then we were told it was transitory. Yes, it exists, but just for a brief moment. The third explanation was it's a high-class problem. This came from the White House Chief of Staff. This one in particular, I have no idea what it means. The fourth explanation was, yes, inflation exists. No, it's not transitory. High class isn't working, but it's a good thing. That was the White House's pitch. Inflation is a sign of just how fantastic the economy is doing. And can't you wait till it does better and inflation goes even higher? And then there's explanation number 5, that the White House has grasped onto, and I'm going to predict that every Democrat on this committee is going to echo, which is Putin, Putin, Putin. The inflation you're seeing, the gas prices, it's all Vladimir Putin, don't you know? Doesn't have anything to do with the domestic policies here. Now, the war in Ukraine was caused by mistakes from this administration, notably President Biden waiving sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline, which enabled Putin to complete that pipeline. And President Zelensky told us that is why Putin invaded Ukraine. But virtually every Democrat, 44 Democrats, voted with the Biden White House against Ukraine and against sanctions on Putin and Russia and Nord Stream 2 because it seems the only pipeline in the world that our Democratic colleagues like is a Russian pipeline that benefits Putin. And the war in Ukraine, before the war started, before Putin invaded Ukraine, gasoline prices had already risen 48% before the first tank rolled in. Second, the political solution is to blame the oil companies. Apparently, these big, bad oil companies, they don't want to sell you oil. They're secretly sitting there saying, we don't want any oil, we don't want to sell any. That whole profit stuff, we're not for it. It couldn't be that those nice fellows in the White House enacted policies to cause this to happen. This is world-class gaslighting. Only a political operative would try to sell you something so absurd. Even President Obama's White House economic advisor, Steve Ratton, recently stated, quote, "This is Biden's inflation, and he needs to own it." That's exactly right. The Biden administration's assault on oil and gas production began during his campaign when he pledged during the debate. And I want you to look at what he said. He said, quote, "No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill. Period. Ends." That's what he promised the American people. And you know what? He delivered on that promise. His first day in office, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. The next week, he halted all federal oil and gas lease sales, stopping development on the part of the economy that produces 24% of America's energy. On May 7th, Biden's Interior Department announced plans prohibiting oil and gas production on 30% of U.S. federal land. On June 1st, Biden revoked leases on the North Slopes of Alaska, totaling 16 billion barrels of oil in stranded production. On October 7th, Biden eliminated Trump's permit streamlining regulations. On October 29th, Biden's Interior began using the, quote, social cost of carbon in permitting, which is a new kind of analysis never enacted by Congress designed to get to know and denied permits. And then on March 21st, just a few weeks ago, Biden's Security and Exchange Commission announced a new regulation aimed at reducing investment in oil and gas, cutting off capital for drilling. Supply and demand has been how prices have been set from the dawn of time. Supply and demand still operates. The Biden administration has waged a war on supply, and prices have skyrocketed. This is not an accident. This is not Putin. This is Joe Biden and the Democrats and the Green New Deal, and they're desperately looking for a political excuse to blame somebody else for the consequences of what they promised they would do to the American people.